welcome to Fricatives number 2. Remember, we left off last lecture when we were saying that fricatives require greater articulatory precision. It is necessary to create a narrow channel through which air can flow and hold it, right? And as we said, controlled articulations are much more difficult to make in comparison to ballistic ones. We showed you some data and said that larger constriction sizes result in ash-like sounds, right? And that also voice fricatives are even more difficult to produce. And why is that so? Well, you've probably figured out the answer to this question, but we will try to respond right now. And we will also take a look at more closely at the acoustic representation of s and sh and other sibilant and non-sibilant fricatives. Right, I'll first give you some numbers here. This is from the UPSI database. This is a relatively older survey of total of 316 languages. Out of these languages, the percentage of s and z is quite high. Most of the languages have this sound s. Bit fewer languages have, or fewer languages have z in comparison to s, and the same pattern all the way down here. The pattern changes a bit here, where we have voiced, we have languages with voiced bilabial and voiced interdental. More languages with these two sounds, but it's pretty close call, as they say. So this might be because of the easiness of articulation as well, and they're not so common in world's languages anyways, right? That too. So yeah, this is just the just the ratio of the voiced and voiceless ones, and we can see clearly that voiceless are quite predominant, right? Languages choose to have voiceless fricatives rather than voiced fricatives. Here are some voiceless and voiced coronal fricatives, or maybe bilabial, better to say, or and interdental ones, and retroflex, palatal, and of course pharyngeal fricatives, whereby the ratio is approximately the same, except for in these two, right? So we get the same ratio, and there are very few languages with these fricatives anyways. So the answer for to this question is of course the aerodynamics, right? Like in everything, like some of the previous thought question answers, the aerodynamics is the answer to this one as well. Voice fricatives have two sound sources, and you may have guessed that while I was talking and while I was saying to you, well, listen, fricatives have a different source, and fricatives don't have a source vocal folds as their source. You might have noticed, but what about voice fricatives? Well, you were right. Absolutely, voice fricatives have two sound sources, one at the glottis, one at the fricative constriction. And in voicing, air rushes through the glottis in short regular bursts, those glottal pulses. Glottis is closed part of the time, and vocal folds open and close very, very, very fast, even though you don't notice that. So it makes certain kind of obstruction already, and air rushes through them, right? That's the first source, and the second source is the fricative source, right? Or the source that you make with your filter, so to say. So it's difficult to maintain a steady stream of flowing air at the fricative constriction, right? So it's difficult to maintain zzz, right, all the way through, although for us not really so much, because we have acquired it, okay? So the second source sometimes can be lost, right? Zzz. If you do that enough, you might even lose the frication at some point. So essentially, you are producing with your glottal folds voicing, and you are also making another source in a way, because the air rushes through your vocal folds, and this source is a noise, is a turbulence. So we don't have a periodic wave in this case, no harmonics, because of this noise, or this frication that is being created in the glottis. Um, and the noise is easily observed on a spectrogram. So a spectrogram shows something like this for S and Z. I'll show it like this. And you can see that spectrogram goes all the way to 8,000 and 8K, right? Hertz, where we can see that S, or the frequencies of S, are really high up there, right?
C,
C,
C, Z,
Z, right? And for Z, the frequencies are not as high as for S, and they are a little bit smeared, right? They're not constant. It's very difficult to have such a constant energy there that would let's say populate this area, or just make it more noisy like S does. And if we do this in Prat, maybe we can say C, Z. Okay, let's see what happens then to our spectrograms. You see how it cuts off there? So I will change the spectrogram settings to place it at 8,000, right? And we can now better see the energy, which is high up there, almost at 7,000, right? There is some energy that corresponds to this energy of formants as well here, right? Because in the anticipation of the next vowel. And here Z, we can even see some voicing bars down there, right? Down here. And these voicing bars indicated it's a voiced fricative, right? And that the energy is quite lower, or this noise is lower in intensity and in its size than for S, right? And we can see that here as well. There are some kind of voicing bars. It cuts off here. This is a spectrum, or spectrogram, sorry, that has reduced decibels, nothing else. So it looks something like this, right? Okay, so S and Z, right? All right, I hope you get the difference. And why is it harder to produce sustained Z as well? These are some more topologies, like number of fricatives, number of languages, percentage of total number of languages. So I guess number of fricatives, 3 fricatives are quite common, 2 fricatives very relatively common in languages. And there are several languages that don't have fricatives. Of the 21 languages without any fricatives, 15 are Australian languages, right? So there are 21 languages without any fricatives. Hawaiian is another language, although can be considered a fricative though, so we have to change maybe that. And there are languages with 22 languages with more than 8 fricatives. So Australian languages on the one hand tend to lack affricates, tend to lack stops, remember those, and they tend to lack fricatives. They are, let's say, newer, quote unquote, newer languages, and that's why they have so many vowels, right? Kabardian, it has the most fricatives. It has 22 fricatives, which is quite a huge number, and only 2 vowels, like such as something like schwa and a. And in connected speech, you might even think that Kabardian speakers do not even have vowels, so just consonants. And there were some theories by conlangers and some conlang or languages created by conlangers that do not even have vowels. But to be honest, vowels are necessary. The majority of languages have this fricative S, so if they choose a fricative, it's S. Languages with one fricative, right? Like 37 of them. Languages with two fricatives, they either have s, sh, or s, f. They're choosing again voices fricatives, right? And they languages with three fricatives would have s, sh, and f, which are easier to produce than z, zh, and v, for example. So those are the facts, and aerodynamics influences the way we produce fricatives, and also the way languages choose, right, or speakers of those languages choose to have certain fricatives and choose not to have other fricatives. S and sh are known as sibilant fricatives. Sibilants have more acoustic energy at higher frequencies than other fricatives. Yeah. Two reasons why. First of all, they are obstacle fricatives, right? So that would be number one. They're obstacle fricatives. And number two would be that they have small, short resonating filter. So what this means is that they are obstacle frequencies. As I said, there is an obstacle usually in teeth, right? When we are producing there is a narrow channel in our vocal tract, right? A narrow channel which is created by our tongue, right? And the air goes through our teeth, right? S, sh, right? Especially for s, and the obstacle is s, 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 s. The obstacle are our teeth. For sh as well, sh, 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 the obstacles are our teeth. And that's why they're louder than other fricatives in comparison to, for example, although f actually does not create, their teeth are not the obstacle, but upper lip, which is not the obstacle all the way through it, right? So it's just a part of the obstacle, so to say. So that's number one. Number two, when we are making these sounds, speech sounds, they have small, short resonating filters. So between constriction and the lips, it's a very small, short resonating filter. And this resonating filter, when it's smaller and shorter, it will create higher frequencies, right? Higher resonating frequencies. Just between our tongue and our lips, there is a small turbulent channel, and that's why we have such frequencies at such levels. And these are the examples of s and sh on spectrogram. Psi and phi. Of course, acoustic energy for f is weaker and spread more evenly across all frequencies. Just because of the fact that for f, the channel is not so narrow, and also when it becomes narrow, so the tongue does not play any role in this one. That's number one. And there is not such a great obstacle as you have for s and sh, right? And these are sh and th. Shy, thigh. The and f are very difficult to differentiate between or contrast. In fact, if you're listening f, th, f, th, you might be able to, but in some kind of a discrimination task, participants were found to have problems or difficulties with discriminating th and f in English, right? And we can see here again, sh is lower in frequencies than s, but quite more constant than th for that matter. And the frequencies are filled up, right, all the way there. And these are s and sh, psi, shy, right? Whereby s will have higher intensity in higher frequencies. That's the point. And sh will have higher intensity in lower frequencies. Sh is post-alveolar and s is alveolar. So more space in the vocal tract in front of sh. So sh, s, sh, including a sublingual cavity. Right, we'll call it sublingual cavity. This filter of sh resonates at lower frequencies. So if you have more space, then you will have larger tubes, or so to say, and lower frequencies. In English, this acoustic distinction is enhanced through lip rounding for sh. This extends the vocal tract, further lowers the resonant frequencies of sh. So in English, you may notice that you say s, but you say sh, and you can see my lips sh are quite rounded. Shoes, show, shine, shine. This means that you're lengthening your tube and those frequencies will be lower. So that's your answer to this question as to why s has higher frequencies and sh lower frequencies, right? Okay, and as I said, we call this sublingual cavity. Um, uh, these are the X-ray tracings of s and sh in English, showing the sublingual cavity in sh, right? And we will check the video in 1 second right now. All right, link 341. We will continue this video in a little bit different fashion because of some technical issues, and you won't see me, but you will see the screen. So that's what's important. It's still me talking, your instructor. So as I said, sh is post-alveolar and s is alveolar. There is more space in vocal tract in front of sh, which we can see here, and there is some kind of what we call sublingual cavity when you're making sh. Just try to put your, just wash your hands and try to put your finger within this cavity, and you'll feel there is space over there. So a lot of space, and that makes it lower in frequencies, as well as the fact that there is some lip rounding over there. So the filter of sh resonates at lower frequencies. In English, this acoustic distinction is enhanced through lip rounding for sh. Right. Okay, so I promised I will show you the videos. So these videos are the videos of a person producing some words, and I want you to guess what's the word that's being produced. I will not play I will mute it for now, and I want you to try and guess what she's saying actually. So these are recordings of a person who was, or just a person for the purposes of running an experiment, which we call McGurk experiment, and you can read more about it on your own time, in your own time. Okay, so let's see what she is saying. I'll play it again. Right, I think this one is relatively easy to get. So she's saying shop, right? Shop. And you can see here that the lips are being rounded, right? Sha, sh, up, right? Shop. So you have two cues rounding of the lips, right? Here for sh, and then producing a p bilabial right here. Okay, let's now watch this one. Okay, let's give this one a shot. Right, this one is trickier to get, but she is saying south, right? So she's saying south, and you can catch her lips first. Here for s, there is no rounding at all. You see, a, u, th, and then there is a tongue that's being raised right behind the teeth. It's not really interdental, but it is definitely dental. Right, and it goes by very fast. Okay, and just for fun, let's take a look at this one. What's she saying here? Right, you could probably guess this. Wash, right? There are a couple of cues here, whereby the rounding is complete, all right? Maybe a velar one, wash, and rounding of sh, but not so prominent, right? And not so bursting, right? So wash. And maybe one more. What's she saying here? Yeah, you probably guessed it. It's wife. Wife. And you can see here again rounding of the lips and producing labiovelar. Labiodental, of course. The labiovelar is w, and labiodental is v. Wife. Right there. Okay, excellent. There is something behind the constriction that's going on with s and sh. Usually with s you will lower the tongue a little bit sometimes in order to make an alveolar constriction here, and for sh you want, and you can try and do a kind of a real short test by saying and check what's happening with this central part of your tongue. And the tongue is lowered a little bit for s, and for sh not so much. We can check the ultrasound recordings of, this is the word safe, right? Okay. And we can see here that a person is preparing to say s, and the tongue goes, the central part of the tongue goes down, right? Safe, right? Unlike for this one, which is shake. Shake, right? Whereby the central part does not move down, it actually remains in its position, like right there. Okay, now there are some other examples that we've noticed in Susie and David's speech. These are some colleagues, some of Steve's colleagues from the university where he worked. She says speech, and he says speech. In the anticipation of this p, which is bilabial, right? He is making this a little bit rounded, right? Speech. And we've noticed that in American English, sometimes in front of t, especially, the s will become sh, right? So the s will become its postalveolar counterpart sh. So you will, because that's all because of the rounding of the lips. We can play Tina Fey for you to see or to hear her say these s and sh actually 3 times.
How was your evening with Thomas?
You mean Gretchen Thomas, the brilliant plastics engineer slash lesbian? What made you think I was gay?
Your shoes.
Well, I'm straight.
Those shoes are definitely bi-curious.
Regardless, I am straight. 100% completely straight.
You probably picked it up. She says straight 3 times. The first time she says straight. The second time she says straight. And the third time again straight.
I was gay.
Your shoes.
Well, I'm straight.
Those are definitely bi-curious.
Regardless, I am straight.
Yeah, she says here's
I'm straight.
it goes by really fast, but there is very little lip rounding.
100% completely straight.
And now when she's emphasizing,
Completely straight.
she has lip rounding there a lot. So that happens, right? In the anticipation of the following consonants: streets instead of streets, and straight instead of straight, right? Because the tongue goes towards the back, right, for str, right? And we've noticed that this phenomenon is quite observable when we have sequences, shriek or shrine or something like that, but we never have shriek or shrine or words like that begin with that consonant cluster, even though S is quite versatile. That is, it can occur with a lot of consonants. That is because of this R retroflex, whereby your tongue is towards the back, a little bit towards the back of the mouth, right? It's not really alveolar, it's more towards the post-alveolar region, or palatal alveolar region, and that's why we have the influence of this consonant, whereby s converts into or becomes sh, and shriek, street as well. The same case with streets and straight. All right. Yeah, I want to play this to you. Speech and
Speech.
speech. Yeah, not so speech, but still quite rounded. Polish is a language in Central Eastern Europe. It's a Slavic language that has a lot of fricatives, and quite dear to me. I was in Poland and I tried to speak this language. It was difficult, and we'll see later why that's so. One of the reasons why are fricatives. So lip rounding can be used to enhance other fricative contrasts. For example, in Polish, it can enhance the contrast between retroflex and dental fricatives. The retroflex fricatives get the rounding. So we have s,
Sali. Shali.
shali, and retroflex sh, or s,
Shali.
shali,
Kasa.
kasa,
Kasha.
kasha, right?
Żali.
Żali,
Skaza.
skaza,
Garza.
garza. So these are actually retroflex fricatives, sh and zh, and you are producing them by placing your tongue in as if you want to say but you're just saying sh, right? Polish also has what are known alveolar palatal fricatives. These are in the IPA system represented like this, with this curly Q-tip towards the inside, so not towards the out or towards the outside of the consonant, so towards the inside. And that's why I wanted you to avoid this name, because alveolar palatals exist, especially fricatives, in languages of the world. When we were talking about, alveolar, post-alveolar, and so on and so forth. Here, Polish has 2 of these, which are produced in this region, in this palatal region, This one is zh, zh, and this one is sh, sh, right? So it's palatalized a little bit as if you're adding a flavor of y to those. And the constriction is in the postalveolar region, right? So alveolar palatal is not completely palatal, and it has a raised tongue in the palatal region behind the fricative. So behind it, it has a raised tongue, which is different from the rest of the fricatives, such as this one. This one is just a representation of the retroflex, which is kind of a traditional representation with this dot, but you don't have to use it like that. I want you to use it with this curly Q-tip, which represents really retroflexion, right? So for any sound, such as maybe n, right, or s, as well, right, and zh. Okay, so that represents retroflexion. Now let's listen to Polish sibilants. As we know, there are now three contrasts here:
Sali,
sali,
szali,
shali,
siali,
shali,
zalew,
zalew, or zalew,
żali,
żali,
ziali,
żali. I'm not trying to imitate a pitch.
kasa,
Kasa,
kasza,
kasha,
kasiarz,
kashash. So this one is tricky. Skaza,
garza,
garza,
kazia,
kazia, right? So there is a lot of y flavor in there, kazia, right? And you can sing along. So how they differ on spectrogram? There's the representation. There's the representation on spectrogram. So sh will have will not have such a intense noise in it, unlike sh, right? And also there will be some lowering in the F3 region, right? The F3 region usually, or the F formant 3 is indicative of retroflexion. So formant 3 is important for retroflexes. It usually lowers when we have a retroflex, and that's something that you can watch for when you're observing spectrograms. For shali, right?
siali,
There is first two formants here. First of all, they start almost as e, right? Because e is very similar to y in terms of closeness of the tongue. So that's why we can say this one is a little bit alveolar palatal, right? Because it starts there, and because the vowel that follows the shali, this fricative, so fricative part is here, right? And the vowel starts from there, which we see, or the vowel formants number 1 and number 2 starts there, which we usually see in something like e or I flavor, right? Or y, which is typical of palatals. So that's also a cue or a clue to whether this one is palatalized or not. Okay, and as I said, for this one, just follow the F3. To measure or to investigate where we are producing our fricatives, we can do what's called palatography. Palatography consists of applying liquid and charcoal using the Q-tip on person's tongue, and the person produces the word, and we see where the traces of this charcoal are. For example, for this s
kasa,
is in the alveolar region, right? For the student, and that's Dr. Steve Winters doing the palatography. He didn't let me play with it, but that's okay. I'll forgive him. And this is the palatography of retroflex,
kasza,
kasha,
kazia,
kazia, right? And we can see that These regions here are post-alveolar, rather than here affected by the tongue, palatal regions as well. So greater region is affected by the tongue, unlike on this first image or figure. So these are the articulatory measurements, palatography, and this is the acoustic measurements of the fricatives. Polish has a lot of consonant clusters, and those involve some affricates, fricatives, and so on and so forth. And just for fun, just for you to sing along and do your best to produce them, here they are.
Dżdżysty,
Dżdżysty,
mnogi,
nogi,
chcieć,
chcieć,
szczekać,
szczekać,
bzdura,
bzdura. Yeah, this one is very famous.
płciowy,
Płciowy,
szczwany,
szczwany,
lśnić,
lśnić,
pstrzyć,
pstrzyć,
wzdłuż,
wzdłuż,
wskrześ,
wskrzeszć,
źdźbło.
źdźbło. Right. So these are quite fun. There is also stop in here, quite not following the SSP, sonority sequencing principle, right? And I hope you've managed to sing along. Mandarin also has sibilants. Mandarin has dental, postalveolar, and alveolar palatal sibilant fricatives. The postalveolars are sometimes retroflex, so
sa,
sa,
sha,
sha,
xia,
xia. So tongue is even a little bit further back for this one,
xia,
and you can definitely hear y flavor in there. This is a labiodental,
fa,
fa,
sa,
sa, dental one, retroflex,
sha,
sha,
xia,
xia, and
ha.
ha, velar. Nice one. So, according to a myth, these Mandarin has syllabic fricatives, retroflex fricatives, and they sound like this: sh, j, s, right? So these are according to a myth, but not attested really. Maybe they are there, maybe they're not, but definitely because they have this R flavor, right? They can be syllabic, right? As R can be syllabic in English. Shona is spoken in Zimbabwe. It has whistling fricatives, meaning that you hear a whistle here and there because of the production, or as a consequence of the production of these fricatives. So let's listen and sing along and try to whistle a little bit. Sika. Oops. Zizi. Kusora. This one is I believe tap or flap. Retroflex one. Kuzara. Shwika. And you can hear it. And here especially. Gigi, right? Kushora. Kujara. Yeah, you try to whistle a little bit. Shwika, right? With these ones, and they're called whistling fricatives. And for this kind of lip rounding, we use this diacritic w, which definitely produces whistling sound. Well, because when you're whistling, you are rounding your lips, right? Denture wearers often produce whistling fricatives. For example, you can compare Barack Obama and John McCain.
You talk about the surge. The war started in 2003.
Senator Obama refuses to acknowledge.
So,
Senator Obama.
Senator Obama.
Started.
So the S's are different. This is Obama's and John McCain's, and you can see that in this area, this region here, there is a lot of intensity, as if producing some kind of a sort of a periodic wave as well in formant frequency number 4. and because of this whistling, the intensity is higher in lower regions of the frequency, right? Unlike here for s, whereby the intensity is higher in the higher regions of the fricative. Excited speakers of English can even produce pharyngeal fricatives.
And yet, to me, this vote is horrible. Horrible.
Horrible. As if you want to emphasize how horrible something is, you can produce pharyngeal fricative very easily. Okay, I'd like now to touch upon affricates. Affricates are transcribed as stop fricative sequences, and they are that, right? They are stop fricative sequences, and for affricates, there is a short rise time in comparison to just a sequence of stop and fricative, which is not an affricate. So the rise time towards the vowel, it's much lower, and acoustically amplitude rises faster in affricates than in plain fricatives, and this rise time is what distinguishes them between plain fricatives. Phonologically, affricates are minus continuant as well. Okay, so some numbers on affricates. This is from UPSID database. Out of 522 affricates in 316 languages, ch is the most common one. C, quite common, but not as common as ch. But still, ch and z are more common than j and z, which are voiced ones, right? So we said voiced stops are more difficult to produce, voiced fricatives as well. And out of 485 affricates have sibilant fricatives, so sh and s, right? And sh and j in there. Other affricate types are rarer, such as f and h in German and Navajo. These are very rare. I think in only in several languages this one exists, and this one maybe it's out there, but not as prominently as this one. Okay, when we talked about the rise time, we can see here that in shy the fricative is quite long, and in chime the stop period or the stop part of the affricate is of course there, and the rise time is quite low, and the fricative itself is shorter in duration. Chime, shy, right? Polish shows this very well. So this is a t sh e sequence. These are all different consonants. So this is not one and the same. I would say diphthong. I would say just consonant, but here it's one and the same consonant. So she, right? So for number 3, it's ch, and idle, ch, right? Just a fun sequence. To show this on a spectrogram, we have she, right, where you have this stop sequence and then a very long fricative, unlike here, where you have a stop sequence and even a remnant of this stop sequence there, and a very short fricative, right? Just because of the easiness of articulation and to show that this is one sound, one consonant, right? And there are 2 consonants in the upper spectrogram. In the end, I would like to summarize this lesson by saying and by recapitulating or reviewing what we've learned. Turbulence provides a source of fricative noise, right?